Let me ask you this question. How do you deal with suffering? How do you deal with suffering? Hi, it's David Dubé here with OnlyOneYouNeed, and I want to know, how do you deal with suffering? In this video, that's what we are going to talk about. We're going to talk about what is suffering. And in doing so, we have to talk about its counterpart, which is that of pain. So pain and suffering together. How do they work? Why do they work together? And we're also going to talk about how do we suffer, and the variations that we bring ourselves through in our methodologies of suffering. And then lastly, we're going to talk about how to deal with suffering and what we can do to deal with this thing called suffering. So pain and suffering, they kind of work together for some weird reason. They're synonymous with each other. We know them as like the interlocking of, well, anything, really. It's crazy to think about, too. So pain, what is pain? Well, pain is the physical aspect of being hurt, right? So if you pinch your arm, you feel pain. If you stub your toe, you feel pain. If you cut yourself, you feel pain. Now, if someone else does something to you, you also feel pain. So if they hurt you physically by punching you, stabbing you, or pinching you, whatever it happens to be, you then feel pain. Now, subsequently, along with that pain, we often suffer. And what is suffering? Suffering is the mental and emotional prospecting of that pain. It's the heightened levels that we feel and we attach to that pain. And then we associate it with it for a long time, most of the cases. And how does that look? How does this work? And well, I'll share several examples with you, one of which is going to be if you were in an accident. Now, this is a hypothetical. I'm not talking about or saying that you're going to be. I'm just saying, let's just say you were in an accident. And in this accident, you were on your way to an event, and then someone hits your car. And in hitting your car, you are now in the hospital and dealing with physical pain. Later on, you hear that the person who hit you was a drunk driver. So now you're angry about their state of affairs when they hit you. And because you heard this news, your emotions became heightened. And as they became heightened, you attach what you just heard to the event that happened to you, which is totally understandable. And so now you hate this person. And every time you hear their name, even just a first name that's associated with them, that makes you really angry. And you go on a tizzy about it. And you feel that anger, you feel the pain every time because they're directly associated with each other. The accident, their state of affairs, and what they did to you. They took you away from the event you were going to, and maybe you had to miss other events because of it. And that also added to the anger that you feel towards them. And so you now take all these events and you tell everyone about it. Everyone you meet who don't even know you, you tell them your story of woe and how angry you are and how much you've suffered because of it. So you talk about the now little limp that you do have in your leg because of this incident. And over the course of time, because of this, your knee starts to go bad. And so you now have a cane. But because you have this cane, your other hip starts to go bad. Mind you, this is years and years of now agonizing, going and suffering through all the events that have happened, and all the things that you've missed because of it, and you all associate everything that just happened to your lower body, even though it's 20 years later, now you have a bad hip, a bad knee, and a bad foot. You associate it all to that event, that accident that took place. And you continue to tell people about it because, in essence, you're still suffering from it. The pain, the chronic pain that you're feeling, you associate with the suffering, which is associated with the event, and it just keeps getting worse. And it keeps getting worse because, well, it's what you focus on. And when you focus on what's terrible in your life, you're going to actually compound it and amplify it and get more of it. But yet that's how we work, and we don't think about that. We just do what we constantly do. Now, let me share a personal story about suffering that led to pain. You see, the first one I just shared was pain, suffering, and then pain. And so the pain surrounds the suffering and it just won't allow it to go anywhere. This next story is a personal story, and one that I was a part of the journey and watched from pretty much beginning until end. And that is my mother. My mom, if you don't already know and you haven't subscribed to this and you have never heard this story, then welcome. You will now know. My mother passed away of cancer now almost a year and a half. So it was, I think we're like a year and a half and a week from the day. See, my mom passed away on January 18th, 2017. So a year and a half ago. And my mom passed away from cancer. See, way back when I was young, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she took care of us kids. And at some point in time, she really didn't have to do much taking care of us because we did our own thing, right? I'd come home and maybe touch homework, but otherwise I'd leave with friends and whatever. And towards the end of her and my father's relationship, which ended, I think, when I was 18 years old, and they finally divorced when, like, the divorce was final when I was 23. But in between then and there, my mom had to go get a job. My mom had to find work. And instead of finding something she would really love and appreciate and enjoy going to, she found just a job. And that job she did not like. She complained often about the people that she worked with that she did not like. And she definitely complained a lot about the people that she had to help, the customers, whom she mostly hated. And most of the time, that was the conversation. And I would do whatever it took to avoid that conversation because I don't like hearing all this negative stuff for any reason. That's me personal, right? So that might not be you, but there's a reason for that, and we'll get to that later. And so a lot of the conversations my mom would have would be about how shitty her job was, how much she did not like it. But yet she had the capability to find a new job, but she just didn't apply herself to do it. And so over the course of years, my mom continued to fester these negative emotions on her job. And if you know anything about the science of this, which here I'll let you in on that. Now, before I get into it, I should preface, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a therapist. I don't claim to be, and I never have claimed to be, and I never will for that reason, because I'm not. But if you do research and you study this, you will find this to be true, that your body produces hormones. We all know that. Our bodies naturally produce hormones. But what you might not know is that when you think a thought, your body creates an emotion in effect to that thought. So they're like married to each other. And when you feel that emotion, your body then creates a hormone. And it secretes this hormone into your body. And over the course of time, something that is good might turn bad to the body. But what we do is when we feel these emotions, our body produces these hormones that run through our body. And over the course of time, feeling the same emotions, our bodies become addicted to these emotions. And there's research that states that on average, us, you and I, we only feel anywhere between 5 to 7 emotions. That's our range, 5 to 7. We identify with either 5 or 7 emotions. And most of us only feel 2 to 3 emotions a day. And at least for a majority of the time. So if you are someone who feels depressed, that's an emotion that you've carried over the course of time that your body becomes used to, and now it thrives on it. It wants to feel that way. And so we automatically put ourselves through the situation. So my mom had done this, and for years it compounded itself until 2009 when I received a phone call on my phone from my mother telling me that she has cancer. That was a day that I'll never forget, and one that has changed my life forever. And knowing that and hearing that, it kind of sucks. Like in the beginning, when I heard that, I don't realize this stuff until way after. Most of the time, we don't realize these turning points in our life until way, way later. And it wasn't until much more recently in my life that I realized that this was the case, that through my mom's emotional states that weren't great, they weren't good, they were pretty bad and mostly terrible, she dwelled on the things that she didn't like. And because of that, it manifests itself into the cancer in which she had. And she didn't just have it once. She didn't just have it twice. She had it 3 times. And the third time was the killer. It's the one that took her life. And I happened to be there the very day that she passed away. And it's something I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy to be a part of and to see. My mom the suffering that she was going through and the pain that coincided that all the way up until she literally took her last breath. It was one of the hardest things for me to experience. And I was there with my aunt, her sister, and my brother. And it was a very difficult thing to see. And I wouldn't, like I said, wish it upon anyone. And here's the thing. You're probably asking yourself, well, David, why didn't you help your mom? Why didn't you change her? You know, you're the expert here. You're the one sharing this information. And boy, I did try. And I tried 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 and it didn't work. It didn't work. There's two things here. First off, there's a saying, and the saying goes, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. I led my mom to other experts because I knew that I lived in the box with her. You see, I'm my mom's youngest child. Yeah, she trusted me implicitly with anything and everything. But the one thing that I could never do is be my mom's expert. I'm her youngest child. I'm not her expert. Even though I may be an expert on mindset and the coaching that I do, I couldn't be my mom's expert, right? She trusts me implicitly, but I'm still not her expert. She went outside of that box that she knew for authority figures. And even though I knew authority figures and I brought them to her and I introduced her to some hypnotherapies, neurolinguistic programming experts, coaches, personal development coaches, all sorts of coaches, my mom still just wanted to live her life. She still wanted to do things her way. And my mom paid the ultimate price for that. And I was partisan to it. I was on the sidelines watching the entire thing. And I was participating by bringing her to her appointments and trying to help her as best I could. You know, listening to audio saying, Ma, listen to this. And even though she heard it, she didn't interpret it the way I did. My mom didn't want to change. My mom was happy to the extent that she was depressed and happy with her depression. That's not something I look forward to telling anyone. It's not something I'm proud of at all. But you know what? I can't change my mom. My mom had to change for herself. She had to want the change. So if she didn't want it, I couldn't do it for her. So that's the answer. I was in the box with her. I'm not her expert. And even though I shared experts with her, she still wanted to lead her life her way. So I know how difficult it can be. So let's talk about the third example of suffering and then pain. You see, my mom, it was about her work and dealing with the crap that came with work. For some people, it's still their work, but it's future tense. It's not past tense. It's not about past experiences. It's not about that car accident that happened in the past. It's about future things that have yet to happen. And so if you are like me, we've all done this before. Have you ever been laying in bed and a thought comes to your mind and it doesn't leave? And you went from like literally almost dozing off to tossing and turning in bed, thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, I have to do this. I have to do that. Oh my gosh, if I don't get this done, then this is going to happen. And oh geez. And your mind races and races. And then you feel like the shortness of breath that comes over you and your heart rate goes up. And you start to sweat in bed, even though moments before you were absolutely comfortable, maybe a little on the chilly side. Do you know what I'm talking about? You ever felt that way before? That's you creating suffering in your life. And we all do it. This past weekend, I felt the same way. I started like, what's going on? And I had to stop myself. And I realized that I was creating suffering for something that hadn't even happened yet. So we suffer in many ways. We suffer based on past experiences. We suffer on experiences that just happened. And we suffer on things that have yet to happen. And it's crazy how all of this stuff works in our lives. But that's the way it is. That's how we operate. And it's up here in the mind. Suffering is in the head, and then it's in the body because the emotions that are attached to it are affecting the rest of who we are. And we create those hormones that are released into the body that the body says, hey, I kind of like this. Let's do it again and again and again. And we actively change our behavior to suit the emotional states that we want to feel. This is suffering. We bring suffering on. Suffering is, it's only associated with pain because A, it starts from pain, or B, it causes pain. But it's the in-between of pain. And it can be mitigated, it can be avoided, it can be diminished. I'm not saying it can go away altogether. But boy, you can change this aspect, and we don't have to suffer nearly as much. But we all do. We all go through these stages of suffering. Now, there's a saying, and you probably heard this before, and I don't know if it's even the saying. It's like the definition. The definition says doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. How many of you heard this before? You probably have. And it's the definition for what? It's the definition for insanity. But yet, the crazy thing about it is we suffer in insane ways. And we do it to ourselves. No one is doing it to us. It's us accepting our thoughts as actual things and then focusing on those things. Now, I want to give you another example of suffering before we talk about solutions here. Another example of suffering. And I don't know your political leanings, and I'm not sharing political leanings here, but I want to talk about this because I know this is huge. It's huge because it's everywhere. And you may have turned on the TV 4 years ago and felt this way, or you may turn on the TV today and have felt this way. It depends on your political leanings. But you see this person who's a president and you just get irately angry. You just feel it head to toe, all this anger and rage just building inside of you because you can't stand to hear or see this person speak at all. How many of you know what I'm talking about? Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. You get this, you understand this, and it's frustrating and it's angering. But here's the thing, you can't change what's going on there. What you can change is the channel. You can also turn it off. You don't have to pay attention to it. Oftentimes, when you pay attention to the what isness, we begin to suffer. Like the what isness of like your bank account has $0 in it. Or the president you don't like is on TV or having a speech or meeting with someone and you're in fear based on what they're doing and you're focusing on them but not you. And the most important person in the world should be you. At least you have to take care of you, because if you don't take care of you, then you can't help take care of other people that you appreciate and you want to take care of. I could go into that, but I'm not going to here. But the idea is this. You have to stop focusing on the what isness, like it's going to get done for the future tense people, and what is going on that you don't like. You have to pay attention to what you do like. You see, so in solving this, you have to pay attention to the things you want and not what you don't want, because then you'll start getting the things you want, not the things you don't want. And you might say to me, well, if I don't pay attention to it, then it's going to blow up, or it's going to explode, or it's going to become bigger than it is. No, it usually becomes bigger than it is because you focus on it. Like instead of it being $0, it's now $-, or instead of it being, something you don't like, it's something you hate, and it becomes something worse than that later on because you can't stop focusing on it. Whereas if you take inspired action, if you take the action towards getting what it is that you want in life, you'll probably start to achieve that. You'll probably start to get that. If you're someone who overeats because you are emotional about something, before I got rudely interrupted by the garbage truck, what I was saying is, if you are an individual who overeats or eats too much because you would, instead of dealing with an emotion, you'd rather feel the feeling of being full and the emotion that comes with being full as a satisfaction point. There's this interesting thing that occurs when you change your behavior, right? We talked about the definition of insanity being doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So if you expect to sit there and not feel the feeling of wanting to eat, you're crazy. You're obviously thinking insane thoughts. You're not doing what you need to do. You have to change your actions. So if you don't want to have those thoughts, you have to change the actions that you're taking. It's literally, I mean, it's interesting because it sounds simple and it's not always that easy, but you have to do that. That's really what it comes down to. So to solve the suffering, we need to change our actions. There's a saying, you can't get there from there. And there's another way of saying it that Einstein had put where like you can't change an event with the same mindset you got into it, which is the same as saying you can't get there from there. With the mindset you went into it isn't the mindset that's going to change it. You have to change your mindset. You have to change what you're thinking and the actions associated with it in order to get different results. You can't keep doing what you've been doing, expecting different results. It's not working. It hasn't worked, obviously, up to this point. So if you want to end your suffering, you have to take action. And you should take inspired action. Positive, inspired action. Do something that's exciting to you or that could be exciting for you. Now, what that is exactly is up to you. I can't tell you what to do. And in this position, I'm definitely not going to do that. But the idea is take action. Do something different. Now, if you don't know what it is that you're currently doing, here's a good thing to do. Take a journal and every 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes at most, take out the journal. So you'll set 30-minute alarms on your phone. And every time 30 minutes comes by, you will take out a pen and paper. It has to be pen and paper. Cannot be, oh, I'm going to do it on my phone. Write stuff down. And journal, write what you're doing. Here is what I'm doing. Here is what I'm accomplishing. Break down what you do throughout the day. So you map your day based on this journal now. Now you know what you're doing and do this for a week. So you know on average every day what you're doing every 15 to 30 minutes. Okay? What you're going to figure out is where you're going wrong. See, most of us, we just do for the sake of doing. We are patterned into our lives. We're habitualized into our lives. So most of the things that we do are all habitual. We do them because we created a habit around it and it fulfills that emotional feeling that we want, that our body now thrives on. So once again, if you're depressed, you've had that feeling so much, your body thrives on that feeling. So if you want to change that, you have to first know what you're doing and then make a decision to change what you're doing so you have different outcomes. Different is obviously better in this case. Once again, we don't want to be insane by doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, which will never come because we're not changing our actions. So that's the key to the game, is changing our actions. But you have to also change the thoughts that you're thinking to help change those actions. Now, some of us are going to be better at this than others. Some of us don't need additional assistance. Some of us do need additional assistance. Here's my recommendation. Reach out to a specialist. Find someone who can help you break these broken patterns that you have in your life. You see, you're not broken. You work completely fine, and I want you to know that. Your body works completely perfectly. The problem is we've habitualized ourselves into imperfect patterns. Your body works perfectly fine, but the patterns in our lives, the habits we have, are imperfect, and they're creating strife in our body and strife in our lives. We have to change those. We have to break them and then change them so then we can lead the life that we truly desire and have the things that we want in our lives. So find a coach, find someone who can help you. And if you can reach out to me, I do help people. This is part of what I work on. I'm a mindset coach, which obviously works for this kind of thing and can help people change and break old patterns so they can lead the life that they truly desire and not have to suffer. We don't have to suffer. We actually choose to suffer. And sometimes we feel that in our suffering is how we achieve some sort of enlightenment or get that statue of us later on in life. That's not necessarily true at all, but society will continue to tell you that. And if you don't suffer, then you can't achieve these great feats. And we hear the stories of those who suffered greatly, but we don't have to suffer. It literally is a choice. It's a physical, it's a mental, and then it turns into an emotional, and then eventually it'll turn into a physical. We don't have to. It is a complete choice. And I want you to know that. I want you to have the ability to set yourself free. And that's why I'm sharing this. That's why I created this for you. So if you feel this was helpful to you, if this was useful for you, please share this out. Help other people be helped by this message. Once again, do your research. Look out there and see what's going on in the world. You can identify this stuff, but you have to be open to things. If you stick with your closed mind and everything's the fault of your past, you'll never be open to new opportunities in the future anyway. So do your research. And once again, if you need help, if you need assistance, reach out to an expert, someone who can help you. And if that expert happens to be me, certainly do that. You can find me at OnlyOneYouNeed.com. If you're watching this, it's easy. You'll see it on the screen. If you are listening to this, then it's all spelled out. OnlyOneYouNeed.com. Easy peasy breezy, beautiful. And it's not CoverGirl, it's you. So with that being said, I'm David Dubé with Only One You Need. And it's time that you be the person you're meant to be. Believe in all that you're capable of and become more than you thought imaginable. I look forward to catching you, my friend, on the next episode. Take care.